Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're studying the Song of God, Bhagavad Gita as it is. We're on chapter 18, which Prabhupada calls Conclusion, the Perfection of Renunciation. Renunciation can be understood as being two things. One is detachment from material sense enjoyment, and on the other side, being attached to Krishna. Being attached to Krishna means to have attachment to Krishna's service. The devotee wants to be attached to Krishna by means of service. And there are 9 different kinds of service. The first service which you are doing is called Shravanam, hearing, the beginning of spiritual life. And the second process, chanting. When one has heard sufficiently, then one also wants to chant or describe or glorify. So that is renunciation. Detachment from material sense enjoyment and attachment to the service of Krishna. In the previous class, we discussed 3 kinds of happiness. Happiness in the mode of goodness, happiness in the mode of passion, happiness in the mode of ignorance. And then the next discussion in this chapter was the 4 varnas: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. And Kamlesh asked a particular question at the end of our last class, which will be answered in tonight's class directly by Krishna. So if you're ready to proceed, then I would request you to please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So if you're following along in the book, we're on chapter 18 and we're on text number 45. This 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita is the largest chapter, followed by chapter 2. And both of those chapters are considered summary studies. The shortest chapters are the 2 most favorite chapters of Gujaratis, chapters 12 and 20. No, it's a fact. I have done research in this. After 20 years of preaching, I can say with certainty. Chapter 12 is entitled Bhakti Yoga, Devotional Service. And chapter 15 is called Purushottam Yoga, linking with the Supreme Person. So let us begin with text number 45. And the system is you repeat after me. Sve sve karmanya bhirata Sansiddhim labate nara Svakarma nirata siddhim yata vindati tachrinu. This phrase, tachrinu, has appeared several times in this Bhagavad Gita. Synonyms: sway, sway, each his own. Karmani, work. Abhirata, following. Sangsiddhim, perfection. Labhate, achieves. Nara, a man. Swakarma, in his own duty. Nirata, engaged. Siddhim, perfection. Yatha, as. Vindati, attains. Tat, that. Shrinu, listen. Please repeat. By following his qualities of work, every man can become perfect. Now please hear from me how this can be done. So, Kamlesh's question is exactly answered. Because the previous section, Krishna outlined the qualities of a Brahmin, of a Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. But here, this verse by Krishna is very, very nice. In other words, it doesn't matter whether you're a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra. That doesn't matter. Why? You can become perfect, today's verse says. How? Following your qualities. So, the qualities of the Brahmin: peacefulness, self-control, simplicity, truthfulness, like that. And then there were qualities of the Kshatriyas and the Vaishyas and even the Shudras. The Shudras was simply serve the others. So Krishna is saying, even the Sudra, and in the Sanskrit, twice the word was given, samsiddhim or siddhim. Twice. And the translation in both, perfection. So even a Shudra can achieve perfection. Not just the Brahmanas. We have many examples in our Vedic scriptures of Brahmanas who have achieved perfection. There are examples of Kshatriyas. We don't hear so much the perfection of a Vaishya or a Shudra. But Krishna is here telling you, yes. Now the question is, how? As he says, now please hear from me how this can be done. So that is Krishna. He gives you the way to do things. Let's go to text 46. Yata pravittir bhutanam yena sarvam idang tatam svakarmanatam abhyarchya siddhim vindati manava. Yata, from whom? Pravritti, the emanation. Bhutanam, of all living entities. Yena, by whom? Sarvam, all. Idam, this. Tatam, is pervaded. Svakarmana, by his own duties. Tam, him. Abhyarchya, by worshipping. Siddhim, perfection. Vindati, achieves. Manava, a man. So again, Siddhim, again, perfection. Please repeat. By worship of the Lord, who is the source of all beings, and who is all pervading.
and who is all pervading.
A man can attain perfection
A man can attain perfection
through performing his own work.
through performing his own work.
So, interesting here is Krishna speaking about himself in the third person, the Lord. But Krishna is the Lord, but he's talking about himself as if the Lord is somebody different. That's why I love Krishna. He could have said, by worship of me, but Krishna's cool. He's saying, by worship of the Lord. Now, these two things, this distinguishes who is the Lord, who is the source of all beings. That's the first thing. This is confirmed in chapter 14. Aham bija pradapita. Krishna says, I am the seed-giving Father. Last Sunday was Father's Day, so I mentioned that. That Krishna is our original Father, because he says all living beings, anything that's living, Krishna is the seed-giving Father. So that is one qualification to be the Lord. You have to be the person who is the source of all beings. You and Kamlesh were only the source of two sons. Brahma is the source, yes. But Brahma has a source. You ask Brahma, because Narada questioned him in the second canto. Narada said, I wonder, because people consider you the supreme, but when I see you doing austerities and penances, I question whether or not you're the supreme. And Brahma immediately confirmed, no, I am not the supreme. And Yamaraj also, after the Ajamil failure, when the Yamadutas could not capture Ajamil, the Yamadutas went to Yamaraj and said, we thought you were the supreme. And Yamaraj also said, no, I'm not the supreme. Above me is that person whose name you chanted, Narayana. Brahma also told Narada, his son, above me is Narayana. So although Lord Brahma is the source of all beings, from one angle of vision, Brahma himself has a source. And if you go back to the original source, it's, nobody knows? Oh, I hope so. Because somebody may say Ganesh. Somebody may say Lord Shiva. Well, I want to make sure you know that I know that you know that I know. Yes, the original source is Krishna. That's why it says in the Brahma Samhita, Anadi Adidi Govinda Sarva Karna Karnam. Yes, he is the cause of all causes. So that's the first qualification to be the Lord. You have to be the source of all beings. And number two, who is all pervading. This was also explained in chapter 13. There were two knowers of the field. There are two knowers of the body. You know what's going on in your body, but I have no idea what you're thinking and feeling right now. Because I only know what goes on in this body. But Krishna in chapter 13 said, but I know what's going on in everyone's body. So that's part two. If you want to claim to be the Lord, then you have to know what is going on in everyone's body. So when you see these people say that this person is God, that person is God, these are the two questions we pose. Oh, you say this Baba is God? Then tell me what I'm thinking right now. Go on. And are you the source of all beings? No, they cannot. They can bluff only. They can only bluff. But Krishna in Bhagavad Gītā and throughout his life demonstrated he was the source of all beings. He was all pervading. Okay, let's look at Prabhupada's purport. If you will, please look at Prabhupada's purport. Srila Prabhupada Ki. As stated in the 15th chapter, all living beings are fragmental parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. What's the verse? That's it. Thank you. Mama eva angsha jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. And Prabhupada makes the point that word sanatana is very important because we are eternally Krishna's parts and parcels. Recently, somebody posted something on my Facebook that somebody was preaching to him that you can become super soul. Yes. So, the point is that verse, Mama Eva Angsha. No, you are eternally fragmental part. Just like if Hiran came up to you and said, I am now become you. What are you, crazy? He can never become you. It's impossible. No, it's not possible. So it's not possible to become God. Part and parcel of God, that you already are. But you cannot become. That's not, become God. That's why the incident of Putana is significant. Because Putana was at best 1-2 months old. Yet he was able to kill the Putana demon. And Prabhupada makes the point. Putana did not have time to so-called become God by going to some mystic yoga factory and doing hot yoga. Then you become God. No. He was God right from the beginning. He killed the Putana demon at 1 month old. He didn't have to become. He already was the God. Okay. Thus, the Supreme Lord is the beginning of all living entities. This is confirmed in the Vedanta Sutra, Janmad Yasya Yataha, which is also, that's why the reference is given, that's also the first verse of Bhagavatam. The Supreme Lord is therefore the beginning of life of every living entity. And as stated in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gītā, the Supreme Lord, by his two energies, his external energy and internal energy, is all pervading. So the idea there is there's only two energies, material and spiritual. There's no other option. It's either material energy and spiritual energy. But in chapter 7, Krishna says, these energies come from me. So that's another reason why Krishna is supreme. None of us can claim that these energies come from us. You can't claim that. It's impossible. But Krishna can claim that. So whether it's the spiritual energy or the material energy, it comes from Krishna, and therefore, impersonally, Krishna is all-pervading. Impersonal means he's represented by his energies. Not personally, but at least by his energies, he's represented. Let us continue. Therefore, one should worship the Supreme Lord with his energies. Generally, the Vaishnava devotees worship the Supreme Lord with his internal energy. Right. We don't worship Durga Krishna. That doesn't make sense. We worship Radha Krishna, Sita Ram, Lakshmi Narayan. Durga belongs to Shiva. So we make a distinction. This is the material realm. This is the spiritual realm. Okay. His external energy is a perverted reflection of the internal energy. Some people don't make a distinction. Many people, they don't make a distinction between Radha and Durga. Many of these people. They don't make any distinction. I know. Because I know one person, he directly told me, there is no difference. No, there is a difference. One is a perverted reflection. One is, in the Brahma Samhita, it's called shadow. The shadow is not the substance. The substance gives off the shadow. So, the comparison is here. Durga Mata is perverted reflection, shadow. Radharani is the real thing. But in some places, if I said that, what they would do? They'll chop my head off. That's right, they'll chop my head off because they don't make a distinction. But when we study these scriptures scrutinizingly, then you learn to be able to distinguish. I'm not criticizing, we're just stating facts. It's not blaspheming. Some people think, oh, you're blaspheming. No, I'm not blaspheming. We're stating facts. The external energy is a background, but the Supreme Lord, by the expansion of his plenary portion as Paramatma, is situated everywhere. So here's another way he is all-pervading. By the Supersoul. The Supersoul is pervading everything. In the Brahma Samhita, it says, not only is the Supersoul within the heart, but the Supersoul is within every atom. So Supersoul pervades everything. Okay. He is the Supersoul of all demigods, all human beings, all animals, everywhere. Yes, this point was already discussed when the 4 verses that Krishna speaks about the demigods. In chapter 7, there are 4 verses where Krishna talks about demigod worship. And there is that line, Mayaiva vihitan hitan. The demigod gives the benediction to the worshipper when the Supersoul dictates to the demigod, do it. He's not independent. That's another thing. The demigods are not independent of Krishna. That's the second offense to chanting of the holy name. To think that the names of Brahma and Shiva are equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. No, they are not. Again, distinctions. Distinctions are made on the basis of higher knowledge. That's why we make distinctions, because you get more detailed information. He is the Supersoul of all demigods, all human beings, all animals, everywhere. One should therefore know that as part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, one has his duty to render service unto the Supreme. Everyone should be engaged in devotional service to the Lord in full Krishna consciousness. That is recommended in this verse. Now, this next section is very nice. Everyone should think that he is engaged in the particular type of occupation by, everybody say, Rishikesha, the master of the senses. And by the result of the work in which one is engaged, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, should be worshipped. If one thinks always in this way, in full Krishna consciousness, then, by the grace of the Lord, he becomes fully aware of everything. That is the perfection of life. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gītā, Tesham ahang sumudartha. The Supreme Lord himself takes charge of delivering such a devotee. That is the highest perfection of life. In whatever occupation one may be engaged, if he serves the Supreme Lord, he will achieve the highest perfection. So Prabhupada is previewing what's going to be stated in the next verse, when he says, in whatever occupation one may be engaged, if he serves the Supreme Lord, he will achieve the highest perfection. So Prabhupada didn't wait for Krishna's answer. He already gave it to you. Spoiler alert. So there is how anyone can achieve perfection. If you serve the Supreme Lord. All right, everybody chant the Maha Mantra. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Krishna Kumar, you know what I think? I think that within 1 year, Krishna is giving you a bigger house. Because we have so many devotees.
With the payment over there, Prabhu.
Huh?
With the payment.
Krishna will arrange everything.
Thank you, Prabhu. I'll look for a house right now, Prabhu.
How many people will bless Krishna Kumar for that? Then bless him, come on. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama Hare Rama.
If
So-
you guys can bless me for bhakti, that will work better, you know. Bhakti will work better than buying a house. So we need a bigger place for bhakti.
All right, we're on chapter 18, text number 47. Shreyan Svadharmo Viguna Paradharmat Svanushthitat Swabhava Niyatang Karma Kurvanapnoti Kilbisham. Shreyan, better. Swadharma, one's own occupation. Viguna, imperfectly performed. Paradharmat, than another's occupation. Svanushthitat, perfectly done. Swabhava niyatam, prescribed according to one's nature. Karma, work. Kurvan, performing. Na, never. Apnoti, achieves. Kilbisham, sinful reactions. Okay. All right. Please repeat. It is better to engage in one's own occupation, even though one may perform it imperfectly, than to accept another's occupation and perform it perfectly. Duties prescribed according to one's nature are never affected by sinful reactions. Now I'll be very honest with you. This verse is very difficult for me to understand. So if you're going to ask me questions, I'm going to not be able to answer, because even I don't completely understand why Krishna says this. Do you have some insight, Batuk?
Just little bit that if you look at, like in this world materially, then if you can do a better job, everybody say, hey, do it. While you're doing it, you say, if you can do better, another job better, that it is still not okay to do it. As for this. But in real world, if you can do the better job, nobody will say, hey, don't do it. You say something, do it, you're doing good. But spiritually, what you're saying, if you go by your, like Varna and Ashrama, so if you're Brahmin, you should do the Brahmin activity. But if you don't do the spiritual activity, then it will be sinful for you. Like it is, in that sense, it will be.
Anybody else want to give a purport to this verse that I myself?
This verse came twice.
I'm not sure, but go ahead.
So I just wanted to know, is that the verse related to the same or
I don't know, because I don't know where the other verse is.
335?
Read 335.
It says, Shreyam Swadharmo Vidana Paradharmacha Vishara. Swadharme Nidhanam Shreyam Paradharmo Bhayami.
And the translation?
It is far better to discharge one's prescribed duty, even though quarreling, and than others' duty perfectly. Distraction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duty.
And what does Prabhupada say in the purport?
One should therefore discharge his prescribed duty in full Krishna consciousness, rather than those prescribed for others. Materially prescribed duties are duties enjoined according to one's psychophysical condition.
Yes.
Under the spell of the modes of material nature, spiritual duties are as ordered by the spiritual master for the transcendental service of Krishna. Do you want me to read the whole?
I want yes, because as I said, I don't understand.
But whether material or spiritual, one should stick to his prescribed duties even up to death, rather than imitate another's prescribed duty. Duties on the spiritual platform and duties on the material platform may be different, but the principle of following the authorized direction is always good for the performer. When one is under the spell of the modes of material nature, one should follow the prescribed duties for his particular situation and should not imitate others. For example, a Brahmana who is in the mode of goodness is non-violent, whereas a Kshatriya who is in the mode of passion is allowed to be violent. As such, for a Kshatriya, it is better to be vanquished following the rules of violence than to imitate a Brahmana who follows the principle of non-violence. Everyone has to cleanse his heart by a gradual process, not abruptly. However, when one transcends the mode of material nature and is fully situated in Krishna consciousness, he can perform anything and everything under the direction of a bona fide spiritual man. In that complete stage of Krishna consciousness, the Kshatriya may act as a Brahmana, or a Brahmana may act as a Kshatriya in the transcendental stage. The distinctions of the material world do not apply. For example, Vishwamitra was originally a Kshatriya, but later on he acted as a Brahmana, whereas Purushottam was a Brahmana, but later on he acted as a Kshatriya. But being transcendentally situated, they could not do so.
They could not, or they could?
So sorry, they could do so. But as long as one is on the material platform, he must perform his duties according to the modes of material nature. At the same time, he must have a full sense of Krishna consciousness.
And Rama, do you have any? Okay. Let's see what Prabhupada writes in the verse of this verse in chapter 18. All right, Prabhupada writes, one's occupational duty is prescribed in Bhagavad Gītā. As already discussed in previous verses, the duties of a Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra are prescribed according to their particular modes of nature. One should not imitate another's duty. A man who is by nature attracted to the kind of work done by Shudras should not artificially claim to be a Brahmana, although he may have been born into a Brahmana family. In this way, one should work according to his own nature. No work is abominable if performed in the service of the Supreme Lord. For instance, now I can explain that. When you join Prabhupada's movement, when Prabhupada was here, Whether you came from a rich background or a poor background, or you were college, it didn't matter. You cleaned the bathrooms. You went to the kitchen. You did whatever the temple asked you to do. You wouldn't say, no, I have a college degree. This work is beneath me. You could not say that. If you were joining the temple and the temple said, now you, because we had to do it, you now have to clean all the bathrooms in the temple. But I'm PhD. Doesn't matter. And why would they do that? They would do that because when you first come, the first thing you have to learn is humility. How to render meaning, because you're doing all these services to please the spiritual master. And that was the mentality of ISKCON when Prabhupada was here. You were joining Prabhupada's temples. And so the way you were trained was, you're doing these things to please Prabhupada. And by pleasing Prabhupada, ultimately you were pleasing Krishna. So it didn't matter. Everybody was doing different things. As you matured, then perhaps you were given a service which was more, what's the word I'm looking for? Matched your, as you in the purport, psychophysical condition later on. But in the beginning, the first thing you learned was humility, to break that false ego that I'm this, I'm that. Same way when Bhakti Siddhanta approached Gorakishore Das Babaji for initiation, 3 times Gorakishore said no. And the reason he did that was that Gorakishore was illiterate. He couldn't even write his own name. Whereas Bhakti Siddhanta was a big scholar. But to humble him and to give an example, 3 times he refused to initiate Bhakti Siddhanta until Bhakti Siddhanta met him on the bridge and said, if you don't initiate me, I'm jumping off the bridge. Oh, okay, I'll accept you. But he did that to teach him that you must become humble. Same way with Lord Chaitanya. When he went to Ishwarapuri, Ishwarapuri called him a fool. Now Lord Chaitanya is who? Yeah, he's the Supreme Personality of God. Who's Ishwarapuri? But it's the same principle. When you go before the spiritual master, the first thing you have to learn is to humble yourself before the Spirit. Not that, Gurudev, I'm here, I'm ready. Okay, Gurudev. No. Before the spiritual master, you have to present yourself meek and humble. Yeah.
See, over here it says one's occupational duty. So are we talking about material duties?
It can be used either way.
But if you-
Okay, where are we? Where?
First line.
Of this verse.
First line.
Yeah, he's talking materially here.
Because he's saying, in Bhagavad Gita it says that according to Brahma Kshatriya, but
Not according to birth, by nature. By your nature, not your birth. Is that your point?
yeah.
Yeah.
Because it describes Brahma Kshatriya Shudra, but when we born in a family,
Yeah, but that's not what we read. When we read, it was the qualities by which they worked. The section before this, I think you were here last time, weren't you?
I think I was maybe
Can you move the instruments away from the speakers because it's causing feedback? Thank you. So, even in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says this is how the Brahmanas work. It doesn't say Brahma Janma. It says Brahma Karma. So, and that's why later on in this same purport, he says, one should work according to one's nature. And he gave the example. You may have been born in a Brahmin family, but your nature is to be a Shudra. So you should follow your nature. That, I got that down. That's not a problem for me. One should follow one's nature. And I'm sure you have done that with your children. You may have wanted certain things for your children, but as they grew up, you realized, my son has a certain nature. I can't expect him to be like this because that's not his nature. Right? And you're going to do that with your sons also, especially now. His nature is going to become very, very important. What's my son's nature? Yes?
You're right. But sometimes we have to guide them, right? The kids.
Yeah, of course. You always have to.
Nature is there, but we have to guide them.
Yeah, the nature has to be guided. Yes, not that nature means I do whatever I damn well please. That's not what nature means. Nature means that yes, you have a certain inclination, but yes, that has to be trained, that has to be guided. Like, look, everyone's nature is to eat, sleep, drink, and be merry. No, that's not what Krishna is talking about. He's talking about nature as a Brahmin, a Vaishya, Kshatriya, or Shudra. And this is the fault with, you could say, Western education. They're expecting everyone to go to college and do all this stuff, but a lot of them aren't fit for certain kinds of, right? Some people are writers. They're not going to become mathematicians. It's like, right? And some people are engineers. An engineer is not going to become a taxi driver, because they have that, and that phrase that Prabhupada used, psychophysical nature. In other words, mental and physical. Both are there. You have earned that from your previous karma. So yes, you should be studying what is the nature of your children. And yes, you have to. That's your duty, is to guide. Not to say, okay, goodbye, you're on your own. You're not going to do that, especially Indian families. You're not going to do that. Shall we continue? Give him a poke. Haribol. In this way, one should work according to his own nature. No work is abominable if performed in the service of the Supreme Lord. So going back to the temple, and there's a specific reference by Prabhupada. One should not think that the person on the altar is better than the person sweeping the temple. They're both on the same platform. But materially we think, the person on the altar must be high, and this, hey, just the sweeper. But not on the transcendental, no. No work is abominable if performed in the service of the Supreme Lord. The occupational duty of a Brahmana is certainly in the mode of goodness, but if a person is not by nature in the mode of goodness, he should not imitate the occupational duty of a Brahmana. For a Kshatriya or administrator, there are so many abominable things. A Kshatriya has to be violent to kill his enemies, and sometimes a Kshatriya has to tell lies for the sake of diplomacy. Such violence and duplicity accompany political affairs, but a Kshatriya is not supposed to give up his occupational duty and try to perform the duties of a Brahmana. One should act to satisfy the Supreme Lord. For example, Arjuna was a Kshatriya. He was hesitating to fight the other party. But if such fighting is performed for the sake of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there need be no fear of degradation. In the business field also, sometimes a merchant has to tell so many lies to make a profit. If he does so, then there can be no profit. Sometimes a merchant says, "Oh, my dear customer, for you I am making no profit." You've heard that how many times in India? Huh? I've heard that 1 billion times. Right?
Joke, the guy said, in our language, that I didn't even pay this much for my cost. He said, "इसमें तो घर में नहीं पड़ी है, इसमें तो घर में पड़ी है तो घर से लाके देते." Just bring it from home and give it to me.
Yes. Therefore, it should be taken, okay, so my dear customer, for you I am making no profit, but one should know that without profit the merchant cannot exist. Therefore, it should be taken as a simple lie if a merchant says that he is not making a profit. But the merchant should not think that because he is engaged in an occupation in which telling of lies is compulsory, he should give up his profession and pursue the profession of a Brahmin. That is not recommended. Whether one is a Kshatriya, a Vaishya, or a Shudra doesn't matter if he serves by his work the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's the theme here. Whatever you're doing, if you're doing it for Krishna, then you're glorious. Even Brahmanas who perform different types of sacrifice sometimes must kill animals, because sometimes animals are sacrificed in such ceremonies. Similarly, if a Kshatriya engaged in his own occupation kills an enemy, there is no sin incurred. In the 3rd chapter, these matters have been clearly and elaborately explained. Every man should work for the purpose of yajna, or for Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anything done for personal sense gratification is a cause of bondage. Yes, in the beginning, Arjuna didn't want to fight based on his own senses. That was the fault. His arguments from one angle of vision were very lofty, but it was based on his own sense perception. And Krishna disagreed. And there's also the incident in the Mahabharata, before Krishna went to deliver the peace message in the assembly. Bhima was also saying, I don't know if I want to fight. And Arjuna also was saying, I don't want to fight. And Krishna was saying, what is this? For 13 years, you guys have been waiting for this moment, and now you want to act like the Krishna got on their case. And then he specifically got on Bhima's case, and then Bhima came back and said, no, don't worry, I'm going to fight, I'm going to show you. Then Krishna went to the assembly and made a peace proposal. What was Krishna's peace proposal? No, that wasn't the peace proposal. Oh, yes. Yes, it was very simple. Give the Pandavas, first he said give them their kingdom. They're supposed to get half. Right? Krishna said, you want peace? Give the Pandavas their half. Then later on, because the Pandavas told him that we're willing to forgive you for what you did to Draupadi, ouch, they're willing to forgive that, and all the things that you did to us throughout our lives, if you give us, like you say, but 5 villages. But what did Duryodhana say, Krishna Kumar? So now, so Krishna said, peace is in your hands, Dhritarashtra. It's up to you. The conclusion is that everyone should be engaged according to the particular mode of nature he has acquired, and he should decide to work only to serve the supreme cause of the Supreme Lord. So the next question, obviously, someone is going to ask, what is my nature? That'll be the next discussion. Now I'm going to ask Kush to sing.
Oh, please come.
Come on. You owe me.